You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to this episode of the Business of Practice podcast, where we focus on the business and human sides of equine veterinary medicine. In this episode, we're going to talk to AAEP President Dr. Rob Franklin about the AAEP Commission for Equine Veterinary Sustainability. I'm your host, Kim Brown, editor of Equine Management. The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you in 2023 by CareCredit. Rob Franklin is a DVM and a diplomate of the American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine. He serves as a consultant and business manager for Fredericksburg Equine in Texas. He practiced in California, Florida, and Australia before returning to his home state of Texas. Dr. Franklin formed the Texas Equine Veterinary Association in 2008 and served as its president in 2012. In 2014, he was elected as a director of the American Association of Equine Practitioners. After serving on the board from 2015 to 2017, he chaired the newly formed Wellness Committee. Franklin was selected as the vice president of the AAEP in 2021 and assumed the role as president in 2023. Welcome, Dr. Franklin.
Howdy, Kim. Thanks for having me. Great to be here with you.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here today to talk about this important topic because the sustainability of equine practice is the top priority of the AAEP. And while Equine Management's been following and reporting on the work being done by the AAEP's commission and its subcommittees, we really wanted to talk to you today to help those who are concerned about the equine veterinary industry learn more about where this movement started, where we are, and where we're headed. So what do you think was the turning point for the AAEP to really make veterinary sustainability its number one area of focus?
That's a great question, Kim. And I don't think there's a singular moment or event that created the need to get this commission underway. But really, it was a culmination of many events. A lot of these were sort of a long time coming. There's been some just changes in the way that equine practice looks, and that's not novel. We've known that has been shifting, and you can look at something just as obvious as a gender change over the past 3 decades, and where we went from a very predominantly male profession to now we're about equally represented, but the future is definitely going to be, the pendulum will swing the other way, and will be the majority of practitioners will be female. And that's great, but it certainly comes with some changes that just are inherent in the way that males and females practice and lifestyles and that sort of thing. There's also been some generational shifts and just the way that modern society works, and also a lot of that is good. Equine practitioners have been noted for their work ethic for forever. There was always old Doc, and old Doc was, he or she was always available. And while that has served the horse owners and the horses very well over time, it's also resulted in a lot of broken marriages and a lot of estranged children and a lot of health issues with the practitioners that don't get to care for themselves. And so we've known about those things, and those things have not snuck up on us, but they've been there. We've been sort of understanding and adapting practice to accommodate those shifts in practice for a while. But it was really in the past 5 years where, again, a confluence of various factors, including COVID and the ability to work and, the shortage of workers, and also just veterinary medicine having a lot of demand on the small animal side has a strong pull for equine practitioners to go that way, because there's a lot of opportunities, that it just created a tipping point. And like all things that are tough in our life, I'm very, very confident and actually happy that we reached this tipping point, but confident in knowing that there's a silver lining, and that when we make it through this mess, that equine practice will be better, and it'll be better for the practitioners. It'll be better for the horse owners. And ultimately, our main goal is to create a sustainable source of veterinary care for the horse. And so all that is going to get better. It is actually getting better. And we're in the middle of our third year of the commission, and we're already seeing changes, and that's exciting. And we're also, getting feedback from practitioners, both young and old, and saying, thank you for embracing this change, this need for change, and helping lead us through these changes. That's valuable, because ultimately we're here to serve the members who are the ones that care for the horses, and that positive feedback is an affirmation that we're on the right track.
Well, tell us a little bit about the commission and the work that it's doing. I mean, there is so much going on right now.
There really is. And this, again, started 3 years ago. So it started with starting to understand the problem. How do we understand this problem? What are the factors that are involved in this problem? And so we went through this process called a mission model canvas that really just helps get input from the stakeholders, and to really understand what are the pressure points, what are the things that are making people maybe not go into equine practice, or for those that start in equine practice and leave, what were the factors that steer them away? And for those that are maybe further along in their career, and maybe they're starting to get burned out, or they're just feeling a little bit hopeless on the future of their professional career, what are those pressure points? So we had some just amazing effort by Florida veterinarian Dr. Carol Clark and Pennsylvania veterinarian Dr. Jim Zelliff. They led this massive survey. Kim, you wouldn't believe the hours that were put in. They hired a veterinarian that's a specialist in being able to help us understand these problems, and they dug into it with all kinds of stakeholders. So students, people that are in vet school now, people that are in the profession and just got in it, people that have left the profession, older practitioners, retirees, professors, industry people, practice owners, practice associates, just every facet of the profession was examined. And through very lengthy one-on-one interviews that Jim and Carol led, and then their whole committee went through and sort of dissected these interviews to look for themes. And so that was done over the course of a year in 2020. And then the distillate of that work was, okay, here are the problems. And then the next step was, let's create subcommittees that can work these problems and further understand them, and then ultimately start to create some solutions to the problems, some best practices, some case studies of people that are winning through these problems, some toolkits that people can just look at and plug and play, and really that is where we are now. We're coming to fruition of this work, where we're getting these deliverables and we're beginning to push them back out to the membership. And we're also pushing these out to the horse owners through our horse owner educational committee that is there to help people. People are fascinated by their equine veterinarian. You know that better than anyone. And they love their equine veterinarian, and they empathize with us, and they celebrate, our victories, and they share in our struggles. And it's really a family. The veterinarian and the client is really more of a family than anything. And so I know that those horse owners are curious, but that's where we are. We've got this commission. The commission is made up of subcommittees. The subcommittees key in off of the 5 major areas that we believe are the keys to successfully improving equine veterinary medicine as a profession. And that starts with students. It also starts with deconstructing the internship process, which is a valuable training process for young veterinarians. But it's also whether you're a veterinarian or a physician, internships are tough, and there are some great ones where they get a lot of intellectual knowledge in exchange for some hard work. And there's also some that are not good and that need to be improved, and where they're burning people out early in the career, and they're not being respectful of people's personal boundaries and things like that. So internships, and then going straight into practice culture. What are things that can make the practice culture, is like any business culture, that where people can thrive and not just survive and not just earn a paycheck, but get the fulfillment that they desire from being on a team and being in a profession. And then compensation. I mentioned earlier about there's opportunities with our small animal colleagues, and where they're able to work less in a less stressful environment, a less dangerous environment from a physical standpoint, and make the same or more money. And so that's unfortunately that's something that we've got to dig into, because let's face it, the cost of education is rising. And if you look at other professions and you look at sort of debt to income ratios, where if you're a physician and you get $500,000 worth of debt, but you very quickly are making $250,000, you've got a debt to income ratio of 2 to 1. We're seeing debt to income ratios of 4 to 1 and north, and that is simply unsustainable. People cannot practice; they cannot enter the profession with those sort of ratios. It's just economically not feasible. So compensation is something that we're trying to understand. There is some good news that for a long time there's a bad rap sheet that equine veterinarians got, and when we dissected more, the pay discrepancy is not as great as what it was described. And so we are trying to share that knowledge with student veterinarians and people that are interested in perhaps pursuing a career in equine medicine, just to understand that, here's the real data, here's the recent data, and we're closer to being on par for the average first 5-year salary compared to our small animal colleagues than we were previously described. And then the last thing, our last subcommittee, is a subcommittee dealing with emergency duty. Again, your horse owners, they know that when they have an emergency, they have to be able to get a hold of someone, and that need and sometimes it has to be a farm call. It could have a down horse. It could have a lack of hauling equipment, which quite honestly, we're really trying to encourage people to, if you don't have a truck and trailer, to go ahead and find that resource before you get into an emergency. But we understand there are times where we need to go out. But providing that 24/7 emergency care that's so important for horses, things like colic and diarrhea and lacerations and, God forbid, broken bones and such, those are real emergencies. They've got to be seen. But being on call all the time, if you're a solo practitioner in a rural area where, quite honestly, the work can only sustain one practitioner, that person's on call 24/7, Kim. And we love horses, we love people, but man, everyone's got to have a little breathing room in their life. And it's really hard to be, to work a full 8-10 hour, sometimes 12-hour day in the breeding season, and then turn around and be out all night. People missing their kids growing up, people not being there for their spouses, people not being able to spend time to find a spouse because they're just working all the time. Those are lifestyle issues. And again, the practitioners that have gone before us, hats off to them, because they really did leave it all on the field, and they gave a lot up in doing so. But the next generation says not for us. And so if we want to create a profession that is that younger people are interested in being a part of, we've got to put some framework around this emergency problem, and we've got to find some creative solutions, which is happening. So those are the 5 subcommittees, and they have oversight from the 5 officers and on the board, and it is literally all we talk about. It is so important, and again, we're getting momentum, we're getting output, we're seeing results already. So I'm excited. I'm very appreciative of the subcommittees. These volunteers are just spending tons of time working on these problems. So we've got a lot of unity within the organization, within the membership. We've got a lot of enthusiasm on people that want to make this better. And so whenever you have that confluence of people that are motivated to see change, and they put that effort forward, we're going to get results. And so I'm excited about that.
The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you by CareCredit. CareCredit keeps equine veterinarians at the heart of care by providing horse owners with simple, budget-friendly financing options. By bridging the gap between cost and care, CareCredit supports healthy financial relationships between veterinarians and their clients. It can help them move forward with care a horse needs whenever and wherever it's needed. How can AAEP members help? I know that a lot of people are excited about this. So, what are some of the things that just the normal veterinarian can do?
I'm actually so glad you said that, because it's actually the veterinarian at home that creates this change. So it's not these subcommittees, it's not the board of directors, it's not the officers, and it's for sure not the president that makes these changes. The people at home make the changes. And so what AAP members can do is they can make the change that they want in their profession, starting at home, starting with their conversations to high school students or junior high students who they're talking about the profession. They could be visiting 4-H groups, FFA groups. They could be going to local veterinary colleges and speaking to those people, speaking to undergraduate animal science, equine science students. They can be talking to their clients. They can be trying to construct a practice that does value the time of its team members and that has a strong culture. They can just be the agents of change. And I think, when people look at these really big problems, they just get a little bit deadlocked in feeling like there's nothing they can do. But, you bring it up, and it's been really my soapbox, is that this all changes at home and with individuals and with the way that those individuals practice and they communicate. And then, there's a grassroots effect that happens from there. And then slowly we create a tide of change, and that tide eventually saturates the profession. But so people can be their own agents of change. They can also just tune in. The subcommittees are putting information out. So again, these best practices, these toolkits, hey, here's a practice that's very similar to my practice. Yeah, they're in Louisiana, I'm in Texas, but they're a 4-doctor practice. They're kind of dealing with the same issues. And look at the cool things they're doing to support their practice culture or to support their internship, or here's how they're handling emergency duty. And so we're highlighting these interesting case studies and allowing people to say, yeah, okay, I like what they're doing, I'm going to take a little bit of this, that, and the other, and I'm going to apply it into my practice. But again, the key is the application. We can come up with all kinds of surveys. We can come up with all kinds of recommendations. We can do Zoom meetings. We can have convention roundtables, table topics, podium speeches. We can make videos, we can make infographics for horse owners to help them understand the problem. Nothing happens until a person changes at home and they change the way they're doing. And the other thing that I think is really important is this whole business of, well, it's their fault. It's the educator's fault. They're not doing it right. Or the educators saying, well, the practitioners aren't creating any culture. Who wants to go work for them? Everyone has been doing a lot of finger pointing. And, not just within the profession, but also, pointing at at other generations. They're pointing at genders. They're pointing at, and pointing does nothing. And so I think, my, or the immediate past president, Dr. Emma Reed, she really, her main thing that I've tried to champion as she's stepping back from her leadership role, is let's stop this finger pointing. Let's realize this is all of our problem. It's not one person's fault. It's all of our fault. It's all of our problem. So let's get busy making positive changes and not complaining and trying to assign blame, because that's not constructive at any level.
Oh, that's such a great point to make. And I am going to go back and touch just a little bit on the vet students and the next generation. And I love the point you said that veterinarians today, when they have the opportunity to speak to a young person, is tell them about the changes. Tell them how the practice maybe isn't what it has been in the past and it's changing in the right direction. So maybe speak just a little bit about more how our practices can talk to owners and the vet students and the next generation, because we see a lot of young people, and so many young people want to go to vet school, and then they either change their mind or they end up in small animal. I know there's a UC Davis class I'm giving a talk to tomorrow, and the instructor said that the majority of these seniors want to go to vet school. So I'm going to go in and change a little of my presentation to put in some of these positive things that the AAEP is doing and say, yeah, we are making changes. This is going to be a great place to have a career. But what can we do? Let's talk about that just a little more.
Well, I think you're right. I think speaking is valuable, but we try to look at all these younger people, the next generation, and we just assume that they're all from Missouri, and they really want to see. They want to see something. They want to see change. Real change. They want to see a practitioner who goes to their kid's baseball game, who values that. Hey, block me out at 4:45. I've got to be there. I'm helping coach the baseball team. These things where practitioners are taking care of themselves in terms of their health. They're stopping for lunch instead of the old guard that just by golly, you work when you're done, or you eat when you're done working. And not taking care of themselves. Someone who's going to work out before coming into work, or doing yoga, or someone who's valuing life outside of practice, but who's also thriving in practice. And again, we're talking about practitioners, but it could be a professor, it could be a researcher, it could be someone in industry. But all those people have the opportunity to begin to show people. And there's nothing that's more powerful than someone who said, I saw the neatest profession. There was this woman and she was treating our horses and she had this amazing, life. And it's not just practice, but it's life. And so I think we have to approach them all like they're from Missouri and show them the change. Now, we got to be talking about it too. But if we're not going to get out there and actually make any change, then what's going to happen is we're going to go out, give talks, tell people how great it's going to be and how great it should be. But if we don't actually make it great, we're charlatans, and we're going to get found out. And so it's both to me. It's talk, but walk also. In the talking helps explain the walking, but if you're not walking while you're talking, then you're just spewing a bunch of hot air, and people ain't going to buy it. They want to see that real change.
And is there anything else, Dr. Franklin, that you'd like to talk to our audience about today as far as the AAEP Commission? I mean, it has done a lot of research, a lot of work. There's a tremendous amount of information that goes out. I mean, we are working with the committees, the subcommittees, and coming out with reports, and wow, there is just so much going on. And the Horse Owner Education Committee that's working with these subcommittees to try and explain all this to horse owners so that they understand the changes taking place. So is there anything else that you want our audience to know?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of put a bow around it, it is support the commission. Please pay attention and immerse yourself within the stuff that's being pushed out from all this hard work. Adapt what you can into your practice. begin to dialogue with other practices and find those case studies that we can model. There's also opportunity, as you said, to speak, and a lot of practitioners are joining a speakers bureau that we've created that can go and talk to the vet schools and talk to 4-H and FFA and high school and junior high students. So there are things people can do, and all that goes back to make those changes that you want. If you are looking to hire somebody, if you're looking to retain people, if you're looking to improve your own life, make those changes that that you ought to do, and make 2023 the year that those changes go into place. At least start that process so that we can turn this tide and really make this profession one that people are fighting to get into. And I'm sure that's going to happen, Kim. I really am optimistic that that's going to be, we're going to have, the tide will change, and we're going to have people who are lining up, to try to get into this profession, because it's going to be such an enjoyable, fruitful, fulfilling way to spend your career in practice.
Well, those are wonderful words to end on today, Dr. Franklin. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Business of Practice podcast. And thank you to our audience who is out there paying attention to this and hopefully getting some of these messages and putting them into practice. And a big thanks to our sponsor, CareCredit, who lets us have these conversations. We invite you to visit equimanagement.com, your favorite podcast network, to hear each of the episodes of The Business of Practice. And if you have any questions or suggestions, send an email to me at kbrown, that's the letter K Brown, at equinenetwork.com.